Hi everyone, it's Jaycee. Welcome back to another perfect pairing. Sometimes the most beautiful thing about a card isn't what's written on the inside, but the message hidden right on the front. Today we're exploring a classic Floriography pairing, the architectural beauty of the Grand Dahlia, matched with its Victorian meaning of inner strength. Let's look at how we can pair color, dimension, and symbolism to tell a story without saying a word. Let's establish a solid foundation on this card. The Regal Flourishes block stamp set was part of the Stampwheel 2.0 Next Level Stamping Retreat with Tasneem, Miriam, and myself, and now the stamp and die set is exclusively yours to have outside of this retreat. I love the movement of the stamp set background, and the choice to include this flourishing design is intentional. As mentioned earlier, this was part of the Stampwheel 2.0 retreat, so I'll need my larger Stampwheel 2.0 platform to quickly work up this statement background. I'll position the base layer of the Regal Flourishes block stamp set on the top left quadrant of the flip plate, making sure that the image does not cross the 90-degree cross on the center of the flip plate. Then with mint chalk from Aqua Island, I'll repeat stamp this base image 4 times in each quadrant. I can easily do this with the flip plate and the stage to ink, stamp, and rotate the design. Since this image is a solid photopolymer shape, I used the Stamp Perfect stamp conditioner to ensure I had a solid impression of the flourish. After I align the detail layer of Regal Flourishes block, I'll move down the gradient of inks in Aqua Island to Pool Fresh Dye ink to stamp and rotate the design 4 more times. The great thing about the stamp wheel is that once I have my image aligned once, I can easily rotate the flip plate 90 degrees to perfectly align with the next and final layer of the image. I'll remove the stamped background from my Stampwheel 2.0 platform and then begin bringing in another element to this card. This is Nesting Serene Archways die set. As the name implies, this nesting set has multiple sizes of OG arches, perfect for any multitude of scenes. I cut the second largest arch from this die set in Vellum. I thought that the pointed tip of the archway would mirror the pointed tips of the focal element to this card. I also liked the structural aspect and symbolism of this image that also matched the storytelling of the statement piece as well. But for now, what I'm going to do with this vellum image is make it a little more interesting. With the remaining 2 inks in Aqua Island Fresh Dye ink family, I'll use Mystic Lake Fresh Dye ink and a small ink blending tool from Altenew to add a half gradient of this color. I'm starting from the bottom of the archway and blending this about halfway up the vellum image. Then with the darkest value of ink in Aqua Island, I'll use Teal Tempest to deepen the teal gradient. Ink blending on vellum is going to take a little bit of time, so I'll set this off to the side to fully dry and ensure I don't touch the ink on the vellum, as it will transfer to my fingers or other cardstock pieces. Now I'm going to grab the statement piece of this card front. New for May 2026 is Craft a Flower Grand Dahlia. I have been reminiscing about the dahlias I had in my garden for 2 years. I love how the dahlias emerge after the long heat of the Colorado summer. Usually my garden gets really tired and stops putting out a lot of blooms in late August through September in preparation for our short autumn. These dahlias really stand out in my outdoor space, so I wanted to recreate that story on this card. I cut all of the images in Craft a Flower Grand Dahlia from white cardstock. I cut the plate of 3 leaves twice from white cardstock as well, but we will see that a little bit later. For now, I'm going to arrange the dahlia petal layers onto my 9x12 sticky mat grid in preparation for some ink blending. I wanted deep and bold blooms for my card front, something that really contrasted with the flourish background and vellum gradient from earlier. So I'm using Rose Petal family of inks to create deep violet gradients on the petals. I'm using a mix of mini ink blending tools and micro blending brushes to control the placement of the ink on my petals. We'll start with Puffy Heart Fresh Dye ink first to help saturate the white cardstock with a base layer of ink. Instead of going straight for my deepest gradient, I think it's important to establish a hue on your cardstock so that the colors transition smoother on these small petal areas. I'll take Puffy Heart nearly to the very tip of the petal. I'm also blending a little bit of this ink with the micro blending brush tools onto the flower center edges, making sure again that the petal tips remain white. Then I'll move down the values of ink to Purple Wine. This will again help saturate the cardstock so that I can further darken the center of the petal layers. I'll do this to all the petal layers with mini ink blending tools and micro blending tools. Now that I have a solid foundation of ink, I'll move to the darkest value of ink in Rose Petal, which is Cosmic Berry. I'll take this nearly to the edge where Puffy Hearts ends, but I want to ensure this color is very saturated on the petal layers. In order to control the placement of this color, I will use the number 10 and number 7 size micro blending brushes to add color to the edges of the flower center layers. In order to control the placement of this color, I will use the number 10 and number 7 size micro blending brushes to add color to the edges of the flower center layers. I'm really careful about adding black to images, especially for florals. I think there are more organic looking ways to transition colors if they need to be deeper. However, I thought with careful blending and a light hand that I could achieve this deep and rich violet at the base of the petals. I'm taking jet black fresh dye ink in full saturation at the base of the petals, but then really easing off the color halfway up the petals to let a lot of the Cosmic Berry show through. You'll see I will dry fit the petals to ensure I have a nice transition and blend of colors on my dahlia. It's important to let these layers of ink fully dry before assembly because the fragile cardstock layers have the potential to rip when glued. So after finishing the front facing dahlia, I'll set this off to the side and repeat the entire process on the smaller side facing dahlia. I want the same gradient of inks to repeat on this smaller image, again starting with a base of Puffy Heart and Purple Wine, then really concentrating Cosmic Berry after layering a solid foundation of color. Then I will carefully apply a light hand of jet black fresh dye ink to the base of the petals. After dry fitting the floral layers, I'll set this grouping of keyhole dahlia images off to the side to let that ink fully dry. To finish up the layers of Craft a Flower Grand Dahlia, I'll use a different family of inks to let the blooms stand out against the background foliage. The Nesting Serene Archways die set gives a lot of geometric shape to this card, so I want the foliage to create some organic structure to support the blossoms. I used Sage Garden Fresh Dye ink set and all the colors contained in it to create smooth blends of ink. Starting from Silver Sprout, then Sage Stone, Olive Grove, then Mossy Granite. After blending these 4 colors, I felt like I wanted a deeper gradient that matched but doesn't compete with the dahlia blossoms. I used Nature's Wonders Fresh Dye ink set in Mangrove Root to add a deep brown green-brown blend to create shadows at the base of the leaves. You won't see the majority of this color, but I wanted the depth to be apparent on the leaves that did show in the final arrangement. That finishes the ink blending process for this card. Now we can move on to the assembly portion of this project. On my 9x12 sticky mat grid, I have a scrap piece of paper centered in my frame to prevent any glue from getting onto the surface. To assemble the Grand Dahlia, all I have to do is align the opening of the dahlia layers in numerical order. Gluing the triangle layer 2 on top of triangle layer 1, layer 3 on top of layer 2, so on and so forth, following the layering guide found on the product packaging. Then I'll repeat this for the keyhole alignment images for the side-facing dahlia image. Again, these images were fully dry before applying any glue. I even used a heat tool to gently speed up the drying process before applying any glue to the surface. Once the floral layers are glued and dry, I'll begin assembling the statement pieces and foliage onto the background. In order to adhere the dahlia flowers to the nesting Serene Archways vellum background, I'll use the black instant dimension foam tape to make sure that the foam does not distract from the intense gradient we have on the dahlias. I'll glue the foliage layers directly to the archway, and I'm doing all of this on top of the vellum archway on the side because once the entire Grand Dahlia bouquet is adhered to the vellum, we will transfer this entire shape to the stamped background. In order to adhere the vellum to the background, I'll use the black instant dimension foam tape to prop this focal piece up. I'm strategically hiding this instant dimension foam tape behind the existing vellum tape and other glued images. Then I'll put this entire piece on top of the stamped background. I decided to put this slightly off to the left of the background to create even more interest to the scene. Before adding a sentiment, I'll add pure white ink spray splatter. Then I'll follow this with gold pearl metallic splatter from the 14 metallic watercolor pan set. I made the sentiment banner from one of the sentiments in Regal Flourishes block stamp set and stamped the sentiment in Teal Tempest fresh dye ink. I foam mounted the sentiment in this perfect place to the right of the dahlia bouquet. With that "You Are Golden" sentiment in place, the story of this card is complete. In the Victorian language of flowers, the dahlia isn't just about beauty, it's a symbol of staying true to yourself and finding the strength to stand tall even when the seasons change. By pairing the bold architecture of the Grand Dahlia with the structured Serene Archway, we've created a portal that honors that resilience. The gold splatters and the sentiment are the final touch, a reminder to the recipient that their inner strength is, quite literally, their golden light. I hope this pairing inspires you to look a little bit deeper into the blooms in your stash and find the hidden messages waiting to be shared. Let me know in the comments if you have any meaningful florals you would like to use to tell a story like this.